Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another show and another episode of our tactical breakdown series in which we look at the players that Arsenal could, should, fingers crossed will be signing come this summer. And for today's episode, I wanted to take a little bit of a revisit back at one of the players that is seemingly becoming much closer to signing for the Gunners this summer, and that is Tierney. But before I do, I wanted to massive thanks, of course, to all the people that are watching, all the people that have been commenting. The comments, as always, have been really positive and really thoughtful. And there's some great football discussions and debate going on in the chats as well. So thank you ever so much for that. And if you could please like and subscribe on the video if you're new to this, and put those notifications on so you never miss an episode. You get notified straight away when there is a new show. So please click that little bell that you can see on your screen, because that will really help us out. So I really hope you've enjoyed the summer so far, because I know it might be a little bit frustrating, but I wanted to look at a player that might make your summer a little bit better by looking at a player that seemingly is going to be signing for Arsenal in the coming days, week. Let's fingers crossed, hope it does get sooner done rather than later, because obviously we want to integrate him into the squad. And that is Tierney, the Scotland international. Is a player that we've been putting bids in for. He's a player that seemingly is going to join Arsenal for around £20 million. The first £15 million bid was rejected, but Arsenal are expected to go back in for the Scotland international and get their man for around £20 million, which, if you consider how the quality of this guy is compared to some of the signings around Europe and around England and what are going for this sort of prices, I think that's an absolute steal and an absolute bargain. And today's video is going to tell you a lot more about why that is as well. Now, I have previously done a video on Tierney and looking into him as a player, and today I wanted to compare him to one of our players and see actually how much different Arsenal will be with Tierney in the side, what he brings, what differences you'll see, and some of the statistics that go to back up those points as well. So let's get straight into the video and talk about Tierney. Well, positioning wise, we know intensity and running and desire is necessary to really sort of get fans on side. And if you look at the two heat maps on your screen, on this side of my screen, you'll be seeing Tierney's heat map. And on this side of your screen, you'll be seeing a Kolasinac. Now, the main issues that you see within those two heat maps is the intensity. Tierney's is so much more intense, so much more running goes on, so much more commitment to get back and defend, run up and down that pitch when needed. He bursts forwards when they're on the attack, Celtic, and he bursts back when he needs to get back into position to get that defending done. If you look on the other side at Kolasinac, there is some intensity, and we know that because more down to the fact that Unai Emery deployed him on the left side of a back five, playing in a wing-back roles where he had to do a lot of running, but you can see the intensity is nowhere near as much as what Tierney is offering for Celtic, and that's simply because he's not doing as much running up and down the pitch. He sticks very much out wide as well. He doesn't seemingly cut in. He doesn't cover as many positions like Tierney does. Tierney definitely comes inside a lot more than what Kolasinac does, and that's why you can see that difference. And for a fan, you're wanting players that we sign to put in absolute maximum commitment, and for a youngster like Tierney who's got to come in and try and supersede someone who's much older, a Bosnian international, he knows that he'll have to recuperate and recover and replicate all of those statistics and all of that running that he did for the Scottish champions once again, if he is to sign for Arsenal, of course. In terms of the defending then, because defending is huge and we know that we need to improve ourselves defensively, something we previously looked at being the duels between the two, 17.39 with a 40% success rate of those duels that Tierney does. Kolasinac, 17.31 with a 40.4% success rate. In terms of their duels, they're almost exactly the same. The differences come when you talk about the interceptions and you talk about the aerial duels. The aerial duels specifically, 2.43 aerial duels won by Tierney, 30% success rate of those being won, and Kolasinac's aerial duels 3.24 more. You'd expect that from a larger, taller frame than what Tierney is, with 52% of those being won, which is a lot more. Well, you'd expect it, wouldn't you, from someone who's much bigger. Interceptions are very similar, 4.6 and 4.65. By the two respectively. So very similar in terms of their defensive stats. It's only the aerial duels that you see the differences for, but it is the main intensity in the running and the positioning where Tierney does sort of lean into that being a superior power. There's also the fact that he's younger. There's also the fact that he's going to be coached by a much better coaching staff and a much better ability to be improved in the Premier League and tested against some of the better players as well. So hopefully we'll see those stats improve come next season. In terms of passing, and this is the main bit that I want to talk about, because passing at Arsenal is huge. And for me, Kolasinac provided us with from the outset, and if you were to take an outside looking in, you'd look at Sad Kolasinac as one of our main threats. He's the one that bursts down that left-hand flank. He's the one that cuts inside and tries to draw the ball back. But unfortunately, this has been worked out by a lot of teams. A lot of teams have clearly known what to do. They know to get close to Kolasinac. They know how to break him down. So what I did was I went back to two of the most competitive games for both players this season. I look at the Europa League final between Arsenal and Chelsea, and I look at the last, what's it called, the Old Firm derby, should we call it? I think that's what the name is, between Celtic and Rangers, in which both players had very different performances in terms of their passing and specifically their crossing. Now, they have two different types of crossing. Kolasinac is more the type that tries to bullet towards the goal, play the ball across for the midfielders and the attackers to try and get on the end of, whereas Tierney is much more focused on trying to get a lofted ball into the box or a really incisive incision into the box to try and mess up with the defenders, to try and force them into making mistakes, to force them to have to make a decision, whereas Kolasinac is much more trying to be assured and get as close as he can to the goal before playing his final pass. Now, that has meant that Kolasinac has an extremely higher failure rate with his crosses than what Kieran Tierney does. So Kieran Tierney, 4.83 crosses per game with 35.4% success rate, whereas Kolasinac less crosses, 3.17, because he's just not getting to the same positions that he wants to cross from as much, with 31.4% success rate. And that's where the key differences are. And if we look at the screen now, I'm going to show you the crosses that was put in by Kolasinac during the Europa League final, and every single one of his crosses, not one, was successful. He got close, and either Christensen or Azpilicueta got in front of the pass because it was very, very easy to read, very easy to close him down the closer you got to goal, and he was able to block it. And there was no real element of danger from that side, and we really lacked a lot of intensity and quality from Kolasinac because unfortunately his game has been worked out by a lot of players. Now, if you compare that to Kieran Tierney and you see the crosses that he put in the Old Firm derby, you can see these crosses are from much more further away positions. He still uses dribbling to get as close to the byline in some instances. He still uses ability to cross the ball from further back with an earlier type cross, but these crosses cause a lot more chaos in the box. They cause a lot more uncertainty for the defenders, and it means that you get more chances created that are going to be yielding more success. And that's why the type of crossing that we need from Kieran Tierney supersedes that of Kolasinac. Kolasinac' style of crossing just simply does not work anywhere near as much as what we need it to, because it's easily defended against and it's easily worked out, and his dribbling is not as good. And we're going to talk about the dribbling in a minute as to why Kolasinac can't get into those positions as much as he'd like, whereas Kieran Tierney is much more assured on the ball, and when he tries to put that final pass in, as you could tell from his crossing stats, it was much more successful too. If we then move on to the passes then, I've already talked about in terms of passing stats in the previous video, and I want to give you some different dimensions to what I'm talking about with the passing. So passes to the final third, 9.55 with a 69.3 success rate, and Kolasinac with a 73% success rate with passes to the final third, but over 4 less passes being made in that final third. Kieran Tierney is trying it over and over again, trying to make these passes, trying to get his players in behind, and whilst it's only 5% less successful, 4% less successful, it is nowhere near happening enough for a team like Arsenal. If we can get Kieran Tierney into this team, the amount of chances that will be created will be multiplied much, much further with much more accuracy in terms of the frequency that they're going on, and in terms of the crossing as well. To get into that final position, Kieran Tierney is way above what Kolasinac is providing us. Then you look at passes to the box, 4.6 every time by Tierney, 53.9% accuracy. Kolasinac, nearly half of that, 2.75, with a 50.9% accuracy in terms of how many times he's doing it. So not only is he doing nearly double the amount of passes into the box, Kieran Tierney, but he's doing it with a 4% higher accuracy, or sorry, 3% higher accuracy than what Kolasinac is doing. So you can see there that that passing type is much more in favour of the Scot, and if we are to get that into our team, it definitely improves on what we already have in the Arsenal side. Now, the final thing I want to talk about is the dribbling skills, because the dribbling between the two is stark difference. Dribbles, 4.57 per game, 69.8% success rate. Kolasinac, 2.05, 66% success rate. The difference between those two is huge. Offensive duels, so the take-ons in that area, 6.74 done per game, 58% success rate. Offensive duels for Kolasinac, 4.11 with only 54% success rate. So again, massively in the Scots' favour. And finally, touches in the box, 1.81 for Kieran Tierney and 2.13 for Kolasinac. Now, whilst you might say, yes, he's having more touches in the box, that is down encountered that style that Kolasinac has to try and burst into the box and make a chance that way, which makes it easier to defend against, and there's higher likely that it's going to be, or a higher chance that it will fail. And that is why ultimately the Kolasinac has been worked out and has frustrated a lot of our fans this season. And Kieran Tierney, was he to come in, then obviously with all the things that I provided you with there, you can clearly see how much of an improvement we would have under the Scotland international. I really hope we see him come in this summer. I really hope that he gels with the team really well and shows us why he's worth all the hype that he's getting. I hope you've enjoyed the video. I hope you've agreed with me that these two are definitely the two that we should be looking out for in terms of the comparisons and who we should be making the guy that's going to be starting for Arsenal, and that is Kieran Tierney. If you do, please leave a comment in the description and let me know what your thoughts are. Are you excited about the possible sign of Kieran Tierney like I am? Because you definitely should be, based on what I've told you today. So thank you ever so much. Thank you ever so much for watching. So much talking been going, I can hardly speak at the end of this. And if you have, please give it a like and subscribe. And I'll see you again very, very soon. And as always, up the Arsenal.